ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपदान् सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपदान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमः। ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिन्निति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा। So welcome back to the Vaishnav Ninda seminar. Last Tuesday we had one class on why we should not criticize the Vaishnavas. And especially Bhaktivinoda Thakur spoke about three ways in wicked people, the three ways by which wicked people criticize Vaishnavas. They speak about their previous sins before taking up to devotional service, or the remaining of the sins which are going towards destruction. While practicing devotional service, they find these faults. And the third, in even some advanced devotees, because of daiva, providence, they might commit something wrong. It has happened by providence. There is some divine arrangement. We don't know that. And we find fault even with exalted devotees. So these are the three ways in which wicked people find fault. That's what Bhaktivinoda Thakur had been discussing in the last class, if you remember. So this is a very, very important discussion which is happening. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur quotes the most famous verse from the Bhagavad Gita. So from the Bhagavad Gita, Bhaktivinoda Thakur quotes especially Api chet suduracharo bhajate mam ananya bhak. Sadureva samantavya samyak vyavastito hi saha. Shipram bhavati dharmatma shashvat shantim nigacchati kaunteya pratijanihi nama name bhakta pranashyati. So these are the two verses which Bhaktivinoda Thakur quotes for this, that how we should, even if somebody is Sudaracharu, but he's situated in Krishna consciousness, one should not find faults, because Krishna himself is saying, he's sadhu, he's samvik vyavastito hi saha. So when Krishna says he's sadhu, and this is my mantavya, why do you do that? And when you do that, you commit Vaishnav aparadh. So in this context, we quite elaborately discussed this verse from the Bhagavad Gita. Vishwanath Chakra Thakur's commentary, as you know, he explains in the form of a conversation between Krishna and Arjuna, which is going on, what is going on in their heart. Baldev Vidyabhushan's commentary. And then we saw Srila Prabhupada's commentary, which was based on Bhaktivinoda Thakur's commentary on the Gita, which is called as Rasika Ranjan. You know, how there is a, conditioned state and the constitutional state, conditional activities and constitutional activities. Constitutional activities refer to direct devotional services. Conditional activity are related with the body, maintenance of the body, and sometimes within our conditioning are the vasanas. And while we see that the conditional activities are favorable to our constitutional activities, core activities, sometimes the vasanas can overpower us and we might do something wrong. So Prabhupada's purport is very, very practical and very, very thought provoking. So we saw this in the last class. Now today, the second verse, 9.31, we will be having a elaborate discussion on 9.31. So let us go to 9.31. Shipram bhavati dharmatma shashvat shantim nigacchati kaunteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati. Very quickly he becomes a righteous person. Shipram bhavati dharmatma, and becomes completely devoid of contamination. Shashvat shantim nigacchati. Shanti means internal peace. Internal peace means internally the mind is free from all material desires. That is the state of pure Krishna consciousness. So when we can attain peace is when we have no material desires in the heart. So this is what is meant by Shanti here. Shanti is not speaking about external Shanti. Here Shanti is something to do with internal Shanti in the form of free from no material desire at all in the heart. So that is what is here Shanti is referring to. O son of Kunti, Kaunteya, you declare Prati Janihi, that my devotee never perishes. Na me bhakta pranashyati. Pranashyati means my devotee never perishes. So the word pranashyati has different meanings in different contexts. So this word pranashyati has come at least 3 times in the Bhagavad Gita. In the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna uses this word pranashyati. Dhyayato vishan pumsan sangasteshu pajayato. In that verse, buddhi nashat pranashyati. That's what he uses, the word pranashyati. So pranashyati refers to destruction of the intelligence, where one falls in the material pool and gets into material sense gratification. So there pranashyati has a different meaning. Again in the Gita, in 6.30, Krishna uses this word pranashyati. Yo mam pashyati sarvatra sarvam cha mahi pashyati tasyaham na pranashyati na cha me na pranashyati. Last line I'm not able to recollect. Tasyaham na pranashyati. He is not lost to me and I am not lost to him. So here pranashyati has a different meaning. Pranashyati here refers to not losing the sight of Krishna. The devotee doesn't lose sight of Krishna, Yomam Pashyati Sarvatra, one who sees Krishna everywhere, that Krishna is everywhere in the form of super soul. And Krishna also doesn't lose the yogi sight. So in that sense, the connection of seeing the yogi seeing the Krishna and as a Paramatma, and Krishna seeing the yogi, this is not lost. Here in that 6.30 verse, the word pranashati has meaning. But here in this verse, pranashati has a very, very, very deep import. My devotee never perishes means, the devotee perishes, his body perishes, but his consciousness. So pranashati here has a deeper import in the sense that Krishna protects the consciousness of his devotees. Name bhakta pranashati. In fact, even if the devotee at the time of death is not able to remember Krishna because of some external situation, Krishna, out of his compassion, will enter the mind of the devotee and cause remembrance of him. So that is why Krishna is saying that, Krishna, his devotees do not perish. So here, pranashati refers to that, his Krishna consciousness will not be lost. Krishna will protect the consciousness of his devotee. Body by nature, it is subject to destruction. Krishna has established in the second chapter of the Gita. So Krishna cannot go against that. Na hanyate hanyamane sharire. The soul is not destroyed, but the body is destroyed. Antavanta ime deha nityayukta sharirana. Antavanta ime deha. The body is all ultimately subject to destruction. But nityayukta sharirana. But that which resides in the body, the soul, is eternal. But the soul's consciousness, Krishna, his Krishna consciousness, Krishna protects that. So that is the real meaning of this word pranashati. Now let us see Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's explanation. And this is really going to go to the peak of spiritual emotions of the discussion between Krishna and Arjuna. In fact, this is like, I think, the most climax scene which is there in the Gita in terms of, the emotional development. Of course, this, and in fact, Vishwanath Chakra Thakur nicely brings out in 18.64, 65, and 66 also. So let us see what Vishwanath Chakra Thakur has to say. Now, Arjuna says, how can you accept the worship of such a sinful person? How can you eat the food and drink offered by a heart contaminated with lust and anger? So here Krishna answers, very quickly he becomes righteous. Shipram bhavati dharmatma. Shipram. Now I will take the questions after I discuss Vishwanath Chakra Thakur's commentary, and then we will discuss Baldev Vidyabhushan and Prabhupada's commentary, and we'll give a short explanation of what actually a deeper insight which Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives in his explanation that we will take up last. So kindly hold on if you have any questions. Let us finish the conversation between Arjuna and Krishna as Vishwanath Chakra Thakur has explained. Very quickly he'll become righteous. The present is used and not the future to express the fact that having committed sin, by remembering the Lord, he becomes repentant and does very quickly become righteous. So the present has been used. Shipram, Shiprat, it is not used, later on, in the past, in the future, no. Shipram, immediately. And how? Because internally he is remembering the Lord. And because of that repentant heart, Krishna manifests in that devotee's heart and purifies him. And that is why he becomes very quickly righteous. Shipram bhavati dharmatma. Oh, how unfortunate I am. There is no one as low as I, bringing bad name to the devotees. So this is how this devotee is thinking. In fact, we don't know what is going on that devotee's heart, especially when, something wrong he might be committed from a material perspective. But what is he thinking? What is his consciousness? Vishwanath Chakra Thakur is bringing out here. This is how he's thinking. Repeatedly, Shashwat, he feels completely Ni form Nitaram, disgust, Shantim for those actions. So, Shipram Bhavati Dharmatma, Shashwat Shantim Nigachati. Shashwat here means repeatedly and Nitaram. Nitaram, he feels disgust for his activities by which he actually attains Shanti. So here the deeper import of how he attains internal peace is that repentance, act of repentance, and repeatedly praying, pleading to the Lord. So this is how the Lord actually wants to make the devotee humble, and he brings out that humility. That is why in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, uh, Rupa Goswami, especially in the southern wave, that is called as the southern division of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, mentions that Dainya Bhav, Dinata, happens because of three major reasons, he says. One is because of distress-filled life of suffering. Second is because of aparadh. And third is because of fear. So when a devotee is put in fearful situation, he naturally becomes humble. So especially when we do aparadh and also pap also it can refer. So here when one commits aparadh, one becomes very dainya, and in dainya bhav, he offers prayers to the Lord, prayers to the devotees for forgiveness. So this kind of dainya bhav is what Krishna, wants to instill in the heart of his devotees, by which they can come closer to him, and by which they can cut off this complete material connection and go back to spiritual world. So actually, by being put in such a situation, that devotee is actually getting purified and coming closer to Krishna, but we are seeing that, oh, he has committed a wrong, and we see faults. So see, this is a whole paradigm shift in our whole perspective of seeing things from the angle of Shastra. We should see not from our mundane material vision, but we should see from the angle of Shastra. Or the use of the present tense can indicate that in the future he will develop righteousness fully. But even right now, it exists in a subtle form. So in the future, he might develop righteousness fully. But now, right now, it exists. It exists in a subtle form. It exists in a subtle form. So we might not see that. So that is why it is said that although Ajamil had kept his son's name Narayan, and he was chanting the name of Narayan, he was calling out Narayan, by which all his sin was destroyed. But yet you see Ajamil was performing sinful activities even that time. So how do you see this? So although his sins were destroyed, but that bhakti took some time to manifest. Bhakti Devi is directly the Sarup Shakti of the Lord, and it might manifest after a certain time. It is independent, it is Swarat. So sometimes, although Bhakti Devi is residing and Bhakti Devi has purified the heart, still you might see that the person might be inclined towards sinful activity. Ajamil was chanting the name of Narayan. He was purified internally. He was, because he was taking the name of Narayan, but yet he was doing sinful activities. But that sinful activities is completely to be taken as negligence. So that is how Vishwanath Chandra Thakur explains that in the Jamil pastime. So that righteousness is there in the subtle form, and it takes some time to manifest. Now, this example is very apt for us to understand. After taking medicine, though the destructive effects of fever or poison remains for some time, it is not considered seriously. So we have all this experience when we take a medicine, especially for a severe disease, or especially some Ayurvedic medicines for deep-rooted disease. The medicine cures, and still the effects are there in the body, but it does not, It's not considered seriously because it will be overcome by the powerful effect of the medicine. Similarly, a devotee, by taking the constantly the name of the Lord, he is purified internally, and all these external sinful proclivity should not be taken seriously, especially in the case of Ajamil, what is mentioned. Thus, with the entrance of bhakti in his mind, the sinful actions are not taken seriously. So we should not take it so seriously. And the traces of sin, such as lust and anger, should be considered insignificant, like the biting of a toothless snake. So this is how we should see. Thus he attains nigachati, complete cessation from luster and anger, shanti, permanently, shashvat. In nigachati, ni stands for nitaram, completely attains freedom from this. This means that even during the stage of having tendency to commit sin, he has a pure heart. This is, way beyond sometimes our comprehension to understand how it is. So that's why we have to have we have to have faith in the statement of the Acharyas and Srila Prabhupada. That is why it is said, anyone who has chanted once the pure name, although he's a Kanishta, he is a pure Vaishnava. That is the standard which Bhaktivinoda Thakur has established, which we had quite an elaborate discussion, if you remember. So after hearing this Krishna's argument, Arjuna says, if he eventually becomes righteous, there would be no argument. However, if a devotee is sinful right up to his death, right up till his death, what is his position? Now, this is a case, extreme case, Arjuna is putting forth. And this case, who perfectly fits in? Can you answer in the chat box? Who perfectly fits in for this case? I hope everyone got the question. Here Arjuna is saying, even he eventually becomes righteous, there would be no argument. However, if a devotee is sinful right up till his death, what is his position? So who fits in this case perfectly? Two answers I got. Ajamil. Yes, Ajamil fits in this case. Ajamil is a perfect example. Now, how the Lord answers, we can see here. The Lord, affectionate to his devotees, then speaks loudly with a little anger. Now the Lord has become anger. Lord is showing his anger. O son of Kunti, my devotee is not destroyed. Name bhakta pranashati. So the Lord is so much affectionate to his devotees, we just can't fathom. After millions and millions and trillions of births, wandering in millions and millions of Brahmandas, he has turned his face towards Krishna. How much Krishna has been waiting for that soul. The soul has an eternal loving relationship with Krishna. And the Supreme Soul, Krishna, it is he who has created this soul. So how much love Krishna has for that part and parcel. So that is the affection of the Lord. The affection of the mother to the child in this world, even if you multiply billions and billions of times, we cannot fathom the affection the Lord has for his devotees. We just cannot fathom. It is a bottomless ocean. That is the kind of affection the Lord has, one who has taken up to devotional service, especially to the path of bhakti. So that is why the Lord becomes angry and he says, O son of Kunti, my devotee is not destroyed. So we see in the life of Ajamil, right till the end of his life, he was committing sinful activities. So somebody might be seeing the life of Ajamil from 25 to 80 and conclude that he's a sinful person. All those persons, are committing Vaishnava aparadh to Ajamil. Whereas you see how Ajamil is blessed that he is able to, name his surname Narayan, of course, by the sadhu's mercy. We all know that story. There is a story in the Puranas that once some sadhus were passing by the village where Ajamil stayed. Ajamil was very famous in his village as a, well-known thief, was into robbery, loot, drinking, illicit activities, So he was well known. So when these sadhus were passing by at the, beginning of the village, some elderly people were sitting and chatting. So they asked, is there any Brahmana's house? We can go and, tonight take some Brahmana bhojan and rest. Usually in the villages, the Brahmanas used to, have host anyone, stranger also as a guest and give them prasad. There is no question of hotels. And they used to also have staying arrangements, special kutir or a special guest house. Always they used to build. So these villagers, they mockery with laugh and with a kind of contempt. They knew that Ajamil was previously a Brahmana, but now he was a wicked person. So just to make fun, they told, oh, there is one Brahmana, his name is Ajamil. He very much nicely takes care of the sadhus. You go to his house. So these sadhus, 4, 5 sadhus, I don't know how many they were, they went to the house of Ajamil. Ajamil had gone out for doing some robbery. And they saw, as they were entering the presence of the house, they all saw everywhere there was liquor bottles, and there were many children who were playing. And they saw the wife of Ajamil, and somehow Ajamil's wife, she was pregnant at that time. She was carrying the 10th child in her womb, and she was quite old. Ajamil, called out the name of Narayan at the age of 80, but at the age of 70, he had conceived a child. That means that child was 10 years old when he had called the name Narayan. So even at the age of 70, he was addicted, to sadhus. She invited the name Narayan. The connection went off. So what I was saying, out of compassion, the sadhus suggested the name of Narayan. And, after the sadhus left, Ajamil came late in the night. She explained that the sadhus had come and they suggested the name Narayan. So he kept the name Narayan. That's it. And for 10 years, he was so much attached to his last son that he was always calling the name of Narayan. And he had become purified by that. And we saw how the Lord, sent his Vishnu Dutas when the Yamdutas had arrived, and out of fear, he called out his son in Sanket. So even up to death, if one is sinful, what is his position? He will not be destroyed, Krishna is saying. Just we can fathom now from this. This shows the liberal heart of the Lord, and that's why Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is bringing out this. At the time of death, he does not fall. Now Arjuna, hearing this, he becomes very wild. But arguers with harsh tongues will not respect this. Those who have harsh tongues or acid tongues, we say, no? Krishna then encourages the worried, lamenting Arjuna. So you can see the whole emotions which are going on here when this whole discussion is going on. Arjuna is in the state of lamentation. Oh, Kaunteya, going to the squabbling of assembly with a tumultuous sound of drums, throwing your hands in the air, you should fearless you should fearless declare this. So you go and declare in that assembly. What? Declare what? Arjuna is saying, declare that my devotee, the devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Supreme Lord, though committing sin, does not perish, but rather reaches success. My goodness. He will never perish. He will reach success. Arguments defeated, pride deflated, they should undoubtedly respect you as a guru. This is Sridhar Swami's explanation. So all arguments are defeated of all these others, arguers, harsh arguers, acid tongue people, and their pride is completely destroyed. And they will respect you as a guru. But why does the Lord order Arjuna to declare this when he could do it himself? Why are you saying, why are you saying, Arjuna, you go and declare? You yourself can declare. As he will say later, Mam evashasi satyam te pratijani priyosi me. I declare to you that you will truly come to me. Evashi, evashasi, eva ishasi satyam te. Satyam means in truth. Pratijani. Pratijani means I promise. Priyosumi. Priyo asmi me. Priyo means dear. Asmi, in my you are to me. So Krishna is saying that Arjuna, you are very, very dear to six five. Sorry, there's some problem with the net connection, as always with these technical issues with the internet. So we were here. Being affectionate to my devotee and not tolerating even a slight degradation of my devotee, I will, under all circumstances, uphold the declaration made by my devotee. Whereas I can break my own promise and accept criticism of myself. Just as in breaking my own promise in fighting with Bhishma, I fulfilled Bhishma's promise. So why is Krishna saying that, Arjuna, you go and declare? Because Krishna, being Bhakta Vatsal, sometimes whatever he has taken a promise, he might break that promise. He might break that promise in order to hold the promise of his devotee. So this is what he did in the Mahabharata. Krishna had taken a vow not to lift weapons. And Bhishma, when those 5 arrows were taken away, he declared that I will fight such vigorously, I will make Krishna break his vow. So Bhishma is a very pure devotee of the Lord. So in order to uphold Bhishma's vow, Krishna broke his own vow. And Krishna doesn't mind from a mundane moral sense if he is criticized in this world, but he will maintain his absolute nature of Bhakta Vatsalata. The absolute truth is Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan. Bhagavan, that is from the Tattva point of view. But from the Rasa point of view, the absolute truth, the highest aspect of absolute truth is that he is Bhakta Vatsal. He is very affectionate to his devotees. So this is one of the most important lessons we should learn. How, the Lord can accept criticism of himself, and he might break his own promise to fulfill the promise of his devotee. So that is why, Arjuna, you declare. Thus, hearing a declaration from my mouth, the materialistic disputers will laugh, but they will accept Arjuna's declaration as if written on stone. Therefore, I will have Arjuna make the declaration. And thus, one should not accept the statements of the falsely intelligent persons who, after hearing about Ananya Bhakti, even of the greatest sinner, think that this declaration made by the pure devotee cannot apply in cases where attachment to wife, children, sinful acts, lamentation, illusion, lust, anger, and all and other despicable qualities manifest. So how, Ananya Bhakti, great sin, like, and we have all these kind of qualities, how do we accept the statement of even Arjuna? It is said, Naivarati dosh. Arre, this is Baldev Dyamushan's commentary. So here Vishwanath Chakra Thakur's commentary ends, So any questions you have regarding Vishwanath Chakra Thakur's commentary? Any clarifications or any questions you have regarding this? It's a very hope-giving commentary for us. Birendra Yadav Prabhuji. Now, okay. Yeah, what is the question?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandot Pranam.
Yes.
Prabhuji, my voice is clear, Prabhuji?
Yes, clear.
Prabhuji, my question is, this Prabhuji verse, Kshipram Bhavati Dharmatma. This word Kshipram, it's very subjective for all living entities. For one, it may be just a moment. For one, it may be a lifetime. For one, it may be many lifetimes. How to understand this Kshipram words?
The word Shipram can be understood from different angles. Most importantly, sometimes there might be a slight contamination even in the very advanced devotees, and by daiva they might commit something wrong. That was the third category which Bhaktivinoda Thakur explained. And Shipram refers to that very quickly, when they just deeply lament and repent, immediately they get more purified, and with that purification, all the contamination in the heart is gone. That is how Shipram can refer. And Shipram can also refer to an entire lifetime, as in the case of Ajamil. But that lifetime for us might be quite big. We might say it as 75 years. But what is that, in comparison to, the closing of Mahavishnu's eyes and opening of Mahavishnu's eyes? From that time point, the entire universe is created. Brahma's, 311 trillion and 42 or 40 million years is all over. So from the Lord's viewpoint, from the viewpoint of eternity, that time is also for him a second. So what is the 75 years? Where, Ajamil, did not manifest any of these symptoms, and only at the last stage he manifested, and Krishna protected his consciousness in an unprecedented way. So that is why we are caught up in this time zone, Kala, where there is the effects of, present, past, and future. And that's why we should see from the transcendental lens of the scriptures and understand. So Shipram can refer to both. It can be immediate, as in the case of very advanced devotees, and even for others, even if it is many years, from the Lord's perspective, it is just one blink. We all know, just to give a extreme example from the pastimes of the Lord, that when Krishna first time played the flute on the Vamsi Vata on the full moon Purnima, Sharad Purnima, on the fifth note all the gopis of Vrindavan, they rushed towards Vamsivata. Some of the sadhana siddhas were stopped by their husbands, by their parents, father-in-law, and they had to stay back. And it is mentioned that because they stayed back, they went into deep meditation, and because they were feeling the separation of Krishna, and this separation, fire was burning in the heart. And this fire burned the slight traces of contamination which were there, and they attained pure spiritual bodies. And in their spiritual bodies, they went to the Rasasali, it is mentioned. So for them also, the sadhana siddhas also, when they are born in Krishna Leela, that slight contamination is, shipram, very quickly it gets purified. So even at that level also, there is some purification, and it is also, very quick, you can see. So we should, not, judge things from the time scale of the effects what it has in the material world in the form of past, present, and future. Is it satisfactory, Birendra Yadav Prabhuji?
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Any other questions anyone has?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Prabhuji, I just once I heard Prabhu regarding this Kshipram Bhavati Dharmatma verse by His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, saying that this verse is talking about the person who is looking at the previous verse.
If you have any questions regarding Vishwanath Chakra Thakur's explanation, we can take up now. I have still Baldev Vidyabhushan, then Srila Prabhupada's, and after that, I will be speaking of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. That time I will take up that.
This I'm talking about Vishwanath Chakra Thakur only, Prabhu.
No, I'll take up that. If you have any questions regarding Vishwanath Chakra Thakur's purport only, you can ask now, right now.
I heard that in this purport, it is also mentioned that those who see that Sudachara as a devotee, they will become.
It is not mentioned. It is not mentioned. We read the purport. It is not mentioned.
Yeah, that's what my question was. Okay, Prabhu.
It is not mentioned. Did you see that in the verse? Is it
No, that's why I was asking.
No, but I told you. Okay. We will take it up that. Okay. Nupur Mataji has a question. Yes, Mataji. I have unmuted you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, can you hear me?
Yes, Mataji.
Prabhuji, this is a general question, not regarding to this purport exactly. Can I ask you? Prabhuji, many times I have observed for myself. When we go and meet some other devotees who are not from ISKCON community, like from ISKCON or having a Vaishnava base, but there are like many attempts in Maharashtra. We see that many saints are there and sons Maharajas are there, and many people do bhakti and they follow all vegetarian diet. Everything is like proper, like, but their standard is a little lower than like what we follow. They might eat onion, garlic, but they stay vegetarian. They also chant holy name. They may not be chanting the Maha Mantra, but they take Krishna's holy name. They also do japa and all. So many a times what happens that our, like when we meet such people or when we come in contact with such people, like somewhere internally that thing comes out that like we are somewhere superior.
Superior.
They are,
Yes.
that thing comes out in our mind, and like this also comes that we feel that we have many times heard in lecture that only 4 sampradayas are there. So then okay, they are not from any of these 4 sampradayas, so what they are doing is wrong, but still they are performing bhakti at their level. So can you just put some focus on this point?
Yeah, see, it's very important. Anyone who is even in the sampradaya or somebody who is not within the sampradaya, if they are taking the names of the Lord and they are practicing something so-called even bhakti, which might be not scripturally right, as per the Shruti, Smriti and the Puranas. without having guidance from the Shastras and from a spiritual master, but still they have a certain kind of faith. So we should have a very broad, we should be very broad-minded, and we should see them that they are certain kind of pious souls. Their faith might be mixed, or their bhakti also might be mixed, but we should have compassion and see that maybe how they can come to Shuddha Bhakti. So as long as we don't maintain this broad vision and broad understanding, we will have this superiority and inferiority complex, and that is not at all good. That's why a devotee should be what? Amanina manadena kirtene satari. So he always gives respect to others and does not expect respect for himself. And who can do this? To give respect to others. If one is considering superior to himself, he cannot give respect to others. He expects that others should give respect to me. So this kind of thing will be there in his, mind and heart. So that is why we should have a very broad understanding, and we should appreciate that, and we should genuinely, see that how even such souls can take up to also Shuddha Bhakti, because that is ultimately the goal of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He wants to come and unite all the four sampradayas. Bhaktivinoda Thakur said the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement is like an ocean which will join all the rivers will join and enter into one ocean, the ocean of Gaura Prema. So that kind of a vision we should maintain even to such people whom we meet. Recently, I had a very wonderful encounter. As an example, I'm suggesting here. I had gone for some treatment in some locality, and while coming, I happened to see a very nice, beautiful Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman temple. And I just went to take darshan, and the old lady, she had made her house was next to the temple, and she had made a garland. She offered the garland, and she was taking the names of Lord Ram, and I was taking the parikrama and chanting my Hare Krishna mantra. But because she saw me in this dress, she was so uh, respectful to the sadhu. She immediately bowed down. She called me to her house. I was reluctant, but I went because she's having some faith, Shraddha. So when I went inside, she made me sit in a proper asana, gave me, daan as, rice, called all the family members to told me to, Sadhu has come, please respect him. And she was constantly taking the name of the Lord. But somehow she also had a very beautiful Sham Sundar deity. She was worshipping that. She was connected to one, organization where she had heard that mantra and she was chanting. So she has faith in the Lord. She knows about Krishna. From her talks, I could understand she has some knowledge about devotion. She was every day reciting the Gita, but she was not connected to a proper parampara. And maybe it is Lord's arrangement that, because she is now, having that faith, she has to come in association of devotees by which they can attain Shuddha, pure faith. So as we had discussed in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's discussion of Vaishnav Praya, there is this Laukik Shraddha and Shastriya Shraddha. We had an elaborate discussion on that. So they might be having this Laukik Shraddha, and our job is how from Laukik Shraddha they can come to Shastriya Shraddha. So that should be our deliberation, contemplation, and we should not go into this mind zone of all these kind of thoughts which come to the mind. We should go to the Shastra zone and see everything from the Shastra angle. Is it clear, Mataji?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Yes, there is any other question? Somebody has chatted. What is the significance of this great? What is the significance of the great guilt which a devotee feels after doing something bad? So we basically have, a moral sense within us. Everyone is born with certain kind of a moral sense of something is right and wrong. When we come to devotional service, that moral sense becomes a spiritual sense where we know what is right and wrong based on Shastra. This is Papa, this is Punya, and this is purely spiritual activities. But we are a, we are a conscious being, and we have something called as conscience. Conscience means, a sense that, oh, I have done something wrong, I've committed something wrong. So this kind of a feeling is there. This is part of our, inner being, our conscience, what we say. So our conscience is pitched, it is pained when we do something wrong, especially a Vaishnava aparadh, or something we do, seva aparadh, something wrong when we do. So this is because we are conscious beings, and then we reflect on it and then we rectify it. So this is how, that is why this kind of guilt feelings come in the heart, and we need to work on these emotions and rectify them by proper procedures. So that is how we should do. Okay, so now we will go to Baldev Vidyabhushan's commentary. Baldev Vidyabhushan, it is said, Navirato dushcharitan na shanta na samahita na shanta manaso vapi pragnenanenam apnuyat. So this he is quoting from the Shrutis, Katha Upanishads. He who has not given up evil deeds, dushcharitan na virato, who is not peaceful, na shanta, or in control of his senses and mind, na samahita. Samahita means, one who is not equipoised in his mind, cannot attain the Lord even through knowledge. Manaso vapi pragnenanam apnuat. He cannot attain. So this is said in the Shrutis. How can you consider them proper if the scriptures say that such sinful persons are averse to you? They cannot attain you, it is mentioned. How can you consider them proper if scriptures only are saying this? Now, that statement concerns persons whose very nature is sinful. So this verse, which is quoted, is speaking about not devotees whose very, very nature is only sinful, like the asuras, something like that. But one who exclusively worships me is purified of his incidental sinful acts by me, the Lord of all beings, who am most purifying because I hold that devotee in my mind. So when we think about Krishna in our mind, we are holding Krishna in our mind. But please also understand, if we hold Krishna in our mind, Krishna also holds us in his mind. So this is how intimately Krishna is explaining, because I hold that devotee in my mind. He then very quickly becomes steady in proper conduct, dharmatma. So his proper conduct will be there. Continually repenting his previous acts, shashvata, he attains nigachati, complete cessation, shanti, for all those sinful acts which are obstacles to remembering me. So it is sinful acts only which are obstacles in remembering us. Now also at the stage of anarth nivriti, why we are not able to continuously remember Krishna? Because the mind is attracted to sinful activities. The heart is still filled with unlimited desires. These are anarthas, we know that. And because of that, these anarthas act as obstacles for us for continuous remembrance of Krishna. That is why after the stage of Nishtha, Ruchi and Asakti, the remembrance of Krishna progresses continuously. It is uninterrupted. But before anarth nivriti, the sinful acts of our unlimited previous pious actions and sinful actions are there in the chitta, and they act as an obstacles for remembering Krishna. So we should, as sadhakas, how as a part of sadhana bhakti, how we should always remember Krishna should be our meditation. We should try to recite Bhagavad Gita verses, recite Bhagavatam verses, recite bhajans, chanting the holy names very attentively. All these kind of acts, if we do, our remembrance of Krishna becomes very, very strong. The smartas will not consider such a person proper if he has not performed atonement rites. So this might be the argument given by Arjuna. Now Krishna says, controlled by attraction to his devotee, the Lord then explains with slight anger. This is the same mood what Vishnu Chakra Thakur also mentioned. O son of Kunti, go to that assembly of Smartas, declare my exclusive devotee, even if he commits sinful acts out of negligence, is not destroyed. Rather, he does not become separated from me and attain misfortune. Rather, purified by me, who am the most purifying, he shines with qualification to attain me. So this is how Krishna is saying. And then Baldev Vidyabhushan quotes this famous verse from the Uddhav Gita. Swapada bhajata priyasya tektvanya bhavasya hari paresha vikrama yachot patitam kadachin dhunoti sarvam ridhi sanyavishta. One who has thus given up all other engagements, Tektva anya bhavasya, and has taken full shelter of the lotus feet of Hari. Hari Paraisha, Swapadamulam, is very dear to the Lord. Priyasya, Bhajata Priyasya. If such a surrendered soul accidentally commits some sinful activity, now here the word is very important, accidentally. Vikrama yat chot patitam kadachin. Kadachin is the word used. It's not that he deliberately always commits offenses, sins. It's the Supreme Personality of God who is seated in everyone's heart. Hridhi Sannavishta immediately takes away the reaction to sin. Dhunoti Sarvam. So this is a very important verse in the Uddhav Gita. Krishna is assuring that devotee. What was said was in relation to Smarta atonement, which is meant for following Smarta rules. Those other than my exclusive devotees. So that is why the Smartas are who? The Smartas are one who, based on the Varnashram, do their Varnashram duties. And they are called as the Smarta Brahmanas, who stick to the rituals of the Karma Kanda. They are called as the Smarta Brahmans. So from the Smarta or the Varnashram perspective, if somebody commits a sin, then the Dharma Shastras give, atonement as prashchita. There are certain procedures in the Karma Kanda scriptures where there is prashchit he has to perform in order to become purified. But for devotees, there is no need. If they commit accidentally any sin, then the process is Krishna consciousness. That is chanting of the holy names and remembering Krishna. That is not, it is for those who are others who are smartas, but not for my exclusive devotees. This is Krishna clarifying. But remembrance of me is effective as atonement for my devotees. The Lord addresses Arjuna as the son of Kunti to indicate that this claim should be announced by a person of noble family rather than of a bad family. This should not be misunderstood. In the 7th chapter, the Lord says that one who is engaged in mischievous activities cannot become a devotee of the Lord. So where in the 7th chapter, Krishna mentions that those who are mischievous, those who are engaged in mischievous activities cannot become the devotee of the Lord. Anyone can type in the chat box where Krishna refers to this. Can type in the chat box which verse does Krishna refer to this. You can either type the first line or the verse number. Anyone? Which verse it is referring to here? Yes, Namam Dishkritano Muda Prapadyante Naradama. Dushkritana, mischievous activity. They cannot become the devotee of the Lord. One who is not a devotee of the Lord has no good qualifications. Harava abhaktasya kuto mahat guna. The question remains then, how can a person engage in abominable activities either by accident or by intention? Now here both are included, because Ajamil first by accident saw that scene and he fell into a sinful life. Later on, with planning, he was committing sinful activities. Be a pure devotee. This question may be justly raised. The miscreants, as stated in the 7th chapter, who never come to devotional service of the Lord, have no good qualifications, as stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Yasyasti Bhaktar. Generally, a devotee who is engaged in the 9 kinds of devotional activities is engaged in the process of cleansing all material contamination from the heart. So this is not referring to those dushkritanas, it is referring to the devotee, and he is engaged in Navida Bhakti. He puts the supreme, sorry, this is Prabhupada's purport. Sorry, I just got carried away. I did not realize that here the Baldev Vidyabhushan's commentary ends. So Prabhupada is speaking here in his commentary that one who is not a devotee has no good qualifications. Then Prabhupada is only raising this question, and Prabhupada is speaking that one who is these miscreants, dushkritana, have no good qualifications, and a devotee is engaged in Navida Bhakti. What he does, he puts the Supreme Personality of Godhead within his heart, and all sinful contaminations are naturally washed away. Shunvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Ridhantasto Abhadrani Vidhanoti Suritsatam. So this is what is happening when he is engaged in Navida Bhakti. Continuous thinking of the Supreme Lord makes him pure by nature. According to Vedas, there are certain regulations that if one falls down from his exalted position, he has to undergo certain ritualistic process to purify himself. This is from the Karma Kanda perspective. But here there is no such condition, because the purifying process is already there in the heart of the devotee due to his remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead constantly. So Prabhupada is paraphrasing, especially Baldev Vidyabhushan. Therefore, the chanting of the Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare should be continued without stoppage. This will protect the devotee from all accidental fall downs. So we should take shelter. Prabhupada is giving a very pragmatic explanation here that we should try to constantly remember the Lord by taking up the holy name. Thus, he will remain perpetually free from all material contaminations. So this is how Srila Prabhupada explains this purport. It's quite brief, Srila Prabhupada's. But here now, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, I will not go into a detail of his explanation, but Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives a very beautiful insight to this verse. Actually, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur gives this explanation to some of his sannyasi disciples that once Yamaraj in Yamaloka, along with Shiva and Narad, were sitting and discussing on this verse. Api chet sudaracharo bhajate mam ananya bhak sadhureva samantavya samvek vyavasito hi saha. And they were discussing Shipram Bhavati Dharmatma. So the Shipram Bhavati Dharmatma, whom it refers to, they could not ascertain the meaning. And there it is mentioned in the mystical trance, Bhaktivinoda Thakur arrived there. And all these great Mahajans, Yamaraj, Shivji, Narad, they got up and offered respects to Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur gave a beautiful insight. In Sanskrit, there are these two words. One is called as Esha and other is called as Saha. So Esha means nearby and Saha means far away. Like, a simple example to give is Esha, who is the one who was killed by Arjuna because he had blocked the Pandavas from entering. Abhimanyu was killed. What is his name? I'm not able to recollect his name. Jayadratha. Yes, somebody has typed Jayadratha. Yeah. So the example is Esha Jayadratha Saha Surya. So Esha Jayadratha means Jayadratha is here. Esha means near. And Saha means far off. Surya, sun is very far off. So Saha refers to far off. So Saha Srila Prabhupada in the word-to-word translation mentions Saha as he. Now, who that he, Bhaktivinoda Thakur clarifies. Bhaktivinoda Thakur clarifies that he refers to that pure devotee who doesn't see faults in that Vaishnava who has done some Sudurachar activity. And in fact, he understands Krishna's heart, he understands the heart of that devotee, and he goes and helps that devotee. So that Saha refers to him. That's what Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains. And this devotee who actually goes and again, although now he is in a very devastated condition because of committing some abominable act, and he is not able to come and face the devotees, because devotees might criticize him, and he's already hurt and he will be more hurt. So to give solace to his heart, this pure devotee, he doesn't see his faults, he approaches him. Others who see faults, they cannot approach him, because when you see fault in others, you cannot go near them. So criticism is like a bank of the river, and the more you criticize, the bank widens, between us and Krishna and us and the devotees. So criticism is so dangerous, that's why. So this pure devotee doesn't criticize those faults. He doesn't see those faults in that devotee who has committed an abominable act, and he, approaches him, gives solace to him. So this is that Saha he mentions. And in context to that, the next verse, Shipram Bhavati Dharmatma, will refer to that pure devotee. So this is how Bhaktivinoda Thakur, from an entirely different perspective, also explains this verse. So that is a slight description of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's explanation, which is given in Bhakti Siddhanta Vaibhav. That is what I had to say about the 9.31 verse of all the three acharyas: Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Baldev Vidyabhushan, Srila Prabhupada, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Any questions or clarifications? Maya Narsim Prabhu, now you have any clarifications?
No, Prabhuji, you got the point and I got the answer, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions anyone has? How many could understand that Saha which Bhaktivinoda Thakur says? You can type in the chat box, or you could not understand also, you can tell me. There is one question: what is Shruti and Smriti? I think you'll have to go back to the ABCD of studying Bhagavad Gita and the basics of Bhagavad Gita. Shruti refers to the four Vedas, the Rig, Yajur, Sama, and Atharva. And the Smriti refers to the Puranas, Pancharatrika, and the Itihasas. That is how the Shruti and the Smritis are classified. There is this Prasthana Traya, Shruti Prasthana, Smriti Prasthana, and Nyaya Prasthana. So these are the sources of knowledge, Prasthana Traya, which is called. And the Shruti Prasthan, we have the Rig, Yajur, Sam, Atharveda, and within that we have the divisions like Samhita, Brahmana, Aranyaka, and Upanishads. So Upanishads are the highest. And in the Smriti Shastras, there are the Puranas and the Itihasas, the Mahabharata, the Ramayana. And in the Nyaya Prasthana, there is the Vedanta Sutra. That is how it is. Okay, there is one more question. How do we develop the quality of not finding fault in others? As finding fault is a quality of devils and very bad in bhakti. So this anartha is very, very deep rooted in our heart to find faults. Until the heart is completely purified, this tendency is very deep rooted. And the best way is to hear the bad effects of finding faults. And this is because we lack spiritual vision. We see from material vision. And the best course of action is to develop the spiritual vision. And to develop the spiritual vision, we should, study Shastra and start seeing from Shastra angle. And slowly, slowly, this anartha, which is very deep rooted in the heart, slowly, slowly, it can be eradicated. One should, hear about the effects of fault finding, how detrimental it is to spiritual life. So here, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is bringing out that, and that is how slowly we will have to work on it. After now, this is almost the last theme now. There is one more theme now. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is going to discuss. After that, Vaishnava Ninda discussion ends. I will be discussing few more important concepts with respect to Vaishnava Ninda criticism. What is criticism? I'll be, doing some pragmatic analysis on that, and how, as a litmus test, we can understand, whether I am free from envy. And then some pastimes from Chaitanya Bhagavat I'll be discussing, which will be of practical, application for us. Mataji, you have a question?
Yes, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dhanvat Pranam. Prabhuji, I wanted to, this question actually Maya Narsingh Prabhuji had asked earlier. So it is somewhat in continuation to that. You had mentioned once that when some devotee commits some aparadh or some sinful activity happens to them accidentally, then there are some rules or some regulations that have to be followed by the organization also, and they need to sort of decide what should be done in these matters. So you had mentioned that you will discuss and bring up this point later. So would you do?
I think we discussed this quite elaborately in the last class as to we have to see from the Shastra perspective what the Shastras say about it. And yes, from the institutional perspective, to protect the integrity of the institution, to protect the community also, there have to be some actions, and there has to be a balanced way in which these things have to be done, so that the devotees' interest, spiritual interest, is also protected, and the community's interest and the institution interest is also protected. And this requires a very, very balanced approach to be taken. And especially Brahminical minds only should be involved in these kind of decision making, who have thorough knowledge of the Shastras, and to see these things from the light of Shastras, and how it should be implemented based on the institution perspective. That also has to be seen, So both these things have to be, done. And we'll have to refer especially how Prabhupada dealt with his disciples, with his God brothers. All these kind of examples we should read from the life of our special acharyas, especially the acharyas like Srila Prabhupada and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and use them as a benchmark for making our decision-making process. Just to give an example, extreme example is, one extreme was, in some of the Prabhupada disciples started the Gopi Bhav Club, which I discussed in our Raganuga Bhakti discussion. And Prabhupada, he went and addressed them. He went and addressed them, pointed out the faults, and rectified them. The other extreme was some of Prabhupada's sannyasi disciples started claiming that Prabhupada is Krishna. Prabhupada was furious. They were all GBC. And Prabhupada dismissed them from the GBC, and he gave them a severe punishment. And that punishment is not a punishment, as a jail superintendent or Maya Devi gives. It is punishment of a supremely merciful Father. He gave a punishment that you will be out of ISKCON 4 months and you will be preaching, and you have to maintain yourself. So they went out for preaching, And, they were completely homeless and without any food. And they went to one person's house, and that person gave them a garage to stay. And they were preaching there. And these people also got transformed by their preaching. And they also understood how Krishna takes care of his devotees. They got the facilities. And within 4 months, they rectified, and Prabhupada reinstated them back as sannyasis and back as GBC. So this is how Prabhupada dealt, situations. So we should be, careful to see that the devotee's interest is also protected. At the same time, the institute's interests are protected. In that way, a balanced approach has to be taken. Is it clear, Mataji?
Yes, Prabhuji, thank you.
Okay. One more question. Maya Narasimha Prabhuji.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna, Prabhu Dandavat Pranam. Prabhuji, this question is very much concerned with today's topic, Prabhu. That as you said about Vaishnava Aparadha, we should not see. But when we have given some service as some preacher or some kind of a facilitator for other devotees, so after hearing these classes, it appears that we are doing some kind of Vaishnava Aparadha when we're trying to correct them. So without making them feel that we offended them, how we can uh, correct them and convince them, Prabhu?
See, we should, as a role of a teacher, we should be very, clear about our roles. Our role is, giving knowledge. And generally, the tendency in the conditioned soul is to control others. That is why we are here. Prabhupada in 15th chapter, 20th verse, last, paragraph. Maybe if Vedabase is here, I could show you. Let me see whether the Vedabase is here. No, I'm not able to find. So he says the root anartha of the heart is, he says, to lord over the material nature. This is the first disease of the heart. The second disease is, after trying to lord, further expanding that lording tendency, expansion of that lording tendency. So this is the disease of the heart, Prabhupada explains. And that is the root cause of fall down. So the tendency is always to control. And this tendency is there, and that's why we should be very, very careful. And we should, be quite neutral and give instructions as per Shastra. And correction is only the duty of the spiritual master. It is between Krishna and the spiritual master. We should never interfere in that correction. We should never interfere, until our higher authorities have informed about it, for the interest of the devotee and the institution for us to do. We should not do that. This correcting mentality is there deep rooted, and we should, nip it from the bud, in one sense, you can say. Till Arjuna surrendered to Krishna, and Krishna spoke, what is this? Vishaya, at this hour of aswargyam, akirtim karanam, Arjuna, klaibyam mam kata partha, naitat hi upapadyate, shudram hriday dhaurbalyam. So Arjuna was fired by Krishna like this. In 2.2 and 2.3. But how did Arjuna take it? Arjuna fired back to Krishna. Katam bhishmam maham sanke dronam cha madhusudana. Ishubi pratiyotsyami arisudana. He also fired back. You are Madhusudan. Oh, you tell that I've killed the king in my dynasty Madhu. No, I'm not referring to that Madhu. I'm referring to that Ari Madhu. So you killed your enemies. And why are you telling to kill my own kinsman? So you see how, even Krishna did not succeed in trying to take that role. Only when Arjuna surrendered out of love, then Krishna starts instructing. And that's why actual instructions begin from 2.11 in the Bhagavad Gita. Similarly, correction is done when that person who is to be corrected has love for that person. And out of love, we, give that instruction for his benefit. So if we have that kind of relationship, then it is good. But generally, tendency is because of the lauding of the material nature control, and that is a very deep-rooted disease, and that's why we should be very careful about it. Is it satisfactory to you, Maya Narasimha Prabhuji?
Amazing, Prabhu. About the second chapter, what Krishna, Arjuna firing back. This is wonderful, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Okay. Any other questions, clarifications? Okay, so we have now only last one theme remaining. There are only few themes to be discussed, and in 2 classes we'll be able to finish. There are very short themes now. There are only 6 more sections. Section 22 we are now in. So, sorry, section 20 we are in. Till 26 it is, and there are some finer points which Bhaktivinoda Thakur is going to mention. And then we will begin what I had told, some practical analysis, that is how criticism is born out of envy and overlook, qualities of one who is free from envy, a litmus test, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's deliverance of criticizers and his instructions. So these 3 themes, few classes we will take, and that's how we will finish our discussion on Vaishnava Ninda. So next week, probably we will finish the entire book discussion on Vaishnava Ninda. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavarind ki jai. Hare Krishna.